It's beautiful.
My goodness. Okay. I think we go with this. Okay, we're good and we're recording. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Kelsey Liverpool. I'm the founder of Kids Rank. We are a program that is designed specifically for military and veteran children. So we support their social and emotional well-being through weekly programming that falls underneath our pillars of connect, lead, and serve. So being able for the kids to connect with each other in their communities and working towards leadership opportunities and service. We do a ton of volunteer service. So I'm really excited about our conversation today. This last 5 months, we've really been diving into different topic areas that are relevant around military children. And I just want to go back and say, when I started Kids Rank in 2012, early on, one of my favorite pieces of research talked about building communities of care. And I talk about it all the time. If you go back and look at old episodes, you'll see that I talk about it. And really the idea that we should be going beyond just a clinical model and how we support our military children, that looking at, not only mental health providers, but also, community partners and our churches, our schools, all of those things. If we all have a better handle on how to support military children, it just makes it easier for them to transition in and out of community. And so today's conversation is around education. And what's really funny, full circle, is that education the piece of research, Building Communities of Care, one of the co-authors is Dr. Rebecca Porter, who is the CEO for MCEC, who is one of our guests today. So we are talking education around military children and have some experts here joining us today. We have a team from Military Child Education Coalition, and if you don't know them, you should, because they are just a powerhouse in really making sure that educational opportunities and resources are at the forefront. You figure military children or children in general spend so much time in school, within their young lives. And so it really is important for our educators for military children to understand what the needs are. And we also will be talking with Suzanne Diener, who is a transition counselor in District 187, where our programming happens near Naval Station Great Lakes, and really getting some really good insight from them and resources that people might not ordinarily think of. So I think that's enough of me. I'm really excited to be here, and I want to turn it over to Casey. Casey McCarley with Military Child Education Coalition to kind of get us started here.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kelsey, for the warm welcome. Team MCEC is so excited to be with you all today. We are truly inspired by the amazing work that Kids Rank does, that all your community partners there are teaming up with you to do. And so we're just happy to be a part of the conversation and really grateful for you guys including us, because this is such an important topic, supporting our military connected kids, whether they come from an active duty family, National Guard and Reserve family, or even a veteran family. Military connected, we know, is military connected, and those roots run deep and they stay. And so it's an important conversation, and we are all united and aligned on supporting our military connected kiddos and the families that work so diligently to raise them. So let me start off today real quick by just introducing the MCEC mission, and then I want to introduce some of my teammates who are here on the call with us, if that's okay. So if you're not familiar, the mission at MCEC is that we support all military connected kids, all military connected children, by educating, advocating, and collaborating to resolve education challenges associated with the military lifestyle. So like I just hit, that includes active duty, National Guard Reserve, and then also, of course, our veteran families. And so as Kelsey mentioned, I'm Casey McCarley. I'm the program manager for professional development. And some of what we're going to talk about today is Purple Star Schools and what that means, what they are, why it's important. We're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into that and the professional development training that can help those schools achieve that Purple Star status. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I want to also introduce, yes, Tara Gleason. She's the program manager for the Military Student Transition Consultant Program. Such neat things that they have going on over in that wheelhouse. And Tara's team does amazing work around Purple Star status, and then also the professional development that can be delivered embedded in a school. And also with us is Sue Lopez. And so she is a military student consultant. She is our boots on the ground in the trenches. I know Suzanne's going to speak a little bit later, and Suzanne and Sue have some very similar duties of what it is that they accomplish. And so I just feel like they're a huge part of the conversation because they're going to bring to us those real life stories of what's happening in schools and what they're seeing from kids and how they're supporting and some vision for how we can continue to support, I think. So super excited to be with you guys. Thank you for letting us introduce ourselves. Tara, Sue, would you like to add anything? Oh, also, sorry, before we move on, I don't want to miss, Anna Startzel is on the line in the chat box today. We're so glad she could join us. She is also with Team MCEC. She's the program specialist for professional development and a huge asset to have her with us today, also working the chat box. So thanks, Anna, for joining us. So back to Tara and Sue. Do you guys have anything you want to add that I totally overlooked or missed?
You did a great job, Casey, but I do want to just echo the thank you for having us here today and allowing us this opportunity to share in this passion of supporting our military connected children and their families. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll get moving forward here, if that's okay, Kelsey. And Kelsey, please interrupt me at any time because we will just talk about this topic all day long. And so I'm counting on you and Meryl just to keep us on task here.
We're going to try and keep us on track.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Well, definitely today, our conversation has to begin at the place of the implications of military service. We at MCEC conducted a survey in early 2020. And from those survey results, we found lots of things that we as military, like I'm an active duty spouse. How many active duty spouses do we have on the line today? Or those who are serving and supporting military connected kids. So we know the challenges are there. We know they exist, but to have them reflected in a survey only bolsters the work and helps us move forward in a specific and clear direction to target the problems and find solutions that help military connected kids. So we have listed on the slide here just a few implications of the military service. And while you're looking that over, I just want to highlight a few findings that we saw in 2020 from our survey report. We saw that academics and transferring credits and IEP, special education documentation, that academic piece is really impacted for military connected kids. I think we can all agree. Yeah, military connected kids do encounter academic challenges. Additionally, the social emotional concerns, and I know that the Kids Rank team does an amazing job at supporting kiddos with that social emotional well-being that has to be in place so that the academic pieces can come together. But the social emotional concerns additionally that we saw reflected on the survey. And I want to go ahead and highlight that students, parents, and professionals reflected these concerns, that kiddos have a hard time fitting in. There's a struggle there with fitting in. There's a struggle with making friends, building student confidence, coping with loss. Those all fall into that SE, that social emotional bucket for military connected kids when they're transitioning. So those are the real life implications of military service. Our kiddos are a volunteer force. And so they get all of the overflow of what our service members have committed to and our whole family's committed. For me, we are a proud Army family and we've moved frequently. We made a pandemic PCS just this last summer from Texas to Colorado. And so our kids, I mean, I can say as a parent, our kids have had a hard time making new friends because we moved to a new place and boom, they had to start school remote and there were no activities, nothing going on. So it's been tough. And so that speaks to the social emotional challenges that our kiddos face. So Tara, Sue, would you guys like to add anything to the challenges, the implications, because since this is kind of the starting point of our conversation?
Sue, would you
Sure.
like to jump in from stories from the field? All right, you were getting to your mute.
Yes. I am so thankful for everything that you do and the opportunity to be with you today and just share some of that triangulated data that Casey was talking about in the Military Kids Now survey. I would like to bring out some, maybe possible, some live examples of what I've done in the last 4 years at 7 high schools, meeting with military kids within the first 10 days of entry, and then supporting them and providing an ongoing continuum of care in meeting the needs. And so if we look at some of the academic challenges that were identified on our survey, but we also know from being in the field with students what they struggle with. And it's definitely a challenge going from state to state and academic standards. And those are, number one concerns of students as well as parents and professionals. Understanding the difference between state and national testing and how it's going to affect their K-12 experience and their future college applications and what they're going to do with the opportunities that are given. Maintaining access and eligibility to extracurricular activities from theater positions or sports positions, or just being involved in the sports or the activities that they love. When they move around, some of those disappear depending on where they are, unfortunately. And then for students, it's interesting that addressing the academic standards was the number 2 issue. It was the number 1 issue for parents. It was the number 3 issue for professionals. And then we go to the different curriculums and moving mid-year. But for students, on their top 5 was academic transfers and equivalent courses. So like, what does that look like for a student who already took French 1 and 2 and needed to take French 3, and their school district only offers Spanish? They've lost that 3-year requirement that colleges have to have the same language, not to mention, higher level AP or dual enrollment options. It's difficult for students who travel from one state to another. For example, Georgia has a 3-year pathway. And one of the academic challenges that I'm dealing with from a young lady going to Colorado to Georgia, as a sophomore, she should have access to a 3-year academic pathway, but she doesn't, because those applications were done and the deals were sealed and the positions were given prior to her parent receiving orders and then coming to that new location. So she's lost a nursing pathway, which her desire is to be labor and delivery nurse. She lost that opportunity. And my daughter lost those opportunities coming from Washington to Georgia as well. And that was back in 2013. So they still exist. The barriers still exist. So we want to help in any way that we can remove those barriers and change policies that maybe a certain percentage of positions are saved for incoming students in highly mobile military population communities. And when we think about highly mobile students, period, children in the oil industry, pastors' kids, there are mobile children beyond military kids that experience these same types of challenges. And if we look at the triangulated data for social emotional concerns, the number 1 thing was feeling accepted, or a sense of belonging, or a sense of connectedness. That was the students. The parents' number 2 concern. The professionals' number 2 concern. But we know that when you feel a sense of belonging to your school and your campus, and you feel a sense of purpose, you're going to go to school. You're going to actively do your work. Your grades are going to be higher and you are going to graduate. So feeling that sense of belonging, connectedness is so important for military kids. And right now during COVID, that is probably very challenging. I have college students that are struggling. They are not in a K-12 system, but it's still a challenge for all of us to go through those differences. And so another challenge that we experience are children who take, for example, 9th grade English or math in 8th grade. And then when they move to a new state, it may have been recognized in that district, but it isn't recognized towards graduation requirements in their new state. or if they sometimes move 2 or 3 times in high school, it doesn't translate. So we often find seniors retaking English 1 or Algebra 1 that already took it as 8th graders, and they're being penalized and retaking those classes again for graduation. And we already talked about language, dual enrollment, AP, and the 3-year pathway. So they affect academically, but they definitely are going to influence the child's social, emotional health and well-being, because children put so much of their life into their academics and their future ahead of them. And when it's not consistently recognized and the opportunities are not leveled for incoming students that are highly mobile, it's defeating. So we want to continue to engage and help teachers and school registrars and counselors to really look at how can we help this family, this student transition. And so as an active duty spouse for 22 years, who's moved 14 times and been through 6 combat deployments, and now my children, their 14th moves were into college, I am just saying, we're not asking for the impossible from school districts. We are asking of what you would want your child to have. And so empathy and compassion and sincere regard towards families that are in transition of any kind. So we thank you for the work that you're doing, and that's what we'd like you to consider and the people that you're working with. So thank you for allowing us to be with you today to share some of those insights from the field.
That's awesome, Sue. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. As we transition the conversation kind of more towards Purple Star schools and what that means, and the professional development training that MCEC can provide, I just want to encourage everyone to pop in the chat box if you're able to, if you can, like, what challenges have you seen? What challenges have you experienced? Whether it's in your own personal context, supporting your own kids, or whether it's in your professional context, and if you support military connected kids in your professional context. What have you experienced? What have you seen? Share that with everybody in the chat box so that we can kind of dialogue about that. It normalizes the experience. So I just invite everyone to be able to do that. So you might have seen on the slide that was just up there that 98% of professionals agree that military connected kids do encounter additional stressors or challenges as a result of the military lifestyle. So professionals know that military kiddos have a little bit something extra of a challenge, but oftentimes they can't articulate, they can't put their finger on it, they don't quite have the resources that they need to solve some problems. And so therefore, we at MCEC are championing the Purple Star School Initiative, Purple Star School status. And so we want to share a little bit about that today. And so MCEC recommends that there are 4 study-driven requirements for Purple Star status. And we just want to encourage everyone to consider advocating for Purple Star designation. What Purple Star does, actually, it's a grassroots movement. I don't know if everyone is aware of that, but it's a grassroots effort to support military connected kids. And it signals that the school or the district is military kiddo friendly, that people have been trained, that people are aware of the unique challenges, unique social emotional concerns that military connected kiddos have. So when families are transitioning into a new area, into a new district, they can look and see, okay, that school is Purple Star certified, and therefore they are kid friendly, and they know what it's like to support military connected kids. So MCEC recommends 4 study-driven requirements. Designate a staff point of contact for military students and families. The individual can be a counselor, an administrator, a teacher, or another staff member. Also establish and maintain a dedicated page on the school website. Families, we research, don't we, before we move? And so we're going to go to that school website and we're going to look. And if that school has on their website, hey, we are Purple Star certified, we're Purple Star trained, then the family's going to know immediately, okay, that school is friendly, they've been trained, they have an awareness. Also maintain a student-led transition program. And this is really cool. And I think Kids Rank and also what Suzanne is doing, there are some hints and some inklings there. And so I'm excited to loop that in on the conversation. But then the last piece there, provide professional development for additional staff on special considerations for military students and families. So we want to call everyone to action, to advocate, and be sure that your school is aware that Purple Star status is a thing. It's an option, it's an opportunity, and that with these components put together, families can have more confidence, can have greater confidence that the school is friendly towards military connected kids. And so here's just a little bit more information about Purple Star and the MCEC resources that you can find on the website. So for more information, we just want to direct you back to that militarychild.org/Purple Star Schools site there. And tons of information we have loaded on there can answer all your questions. And don't feel not equipped to be able to talk to your school about it. What you can do is just direct them to MCEC if that helps you out. Just point them to the website, point them to MCEC, and we can help guide that school through the information that they need, the steps that they're going to have to take, so that they can be educated and they can, move out on acquiring the Purple Star status there. So tons of information loaded on the MCEC website that we just want to encourage everyone to be able to access.
And I'll just interject here. We'll also, after this session, send out the list of resources so that you have access to them for people that are on the call with us.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, that's awesome. So real quick here before we transition on to the next thing, because I don't want to take up everyone else's time. Like I said, I could talk about this topic all day long. I just want everyone to be aware that at MCEC, we offer professional development training that supports MilKid mental health. We target the mixed emotions of reintegration. That's when the service member is in and out of the house based on a deployment, a training, a field problem, whatever it may be. When that service member is in and out of the house, there are mixed emotions associated with that reintegration. And so that's one of the trainings that we offer. We offer several things in the mental health bucket in support of military connected kiddos. Additionally, we offer a training called the New Normal. It's going to train professionals about the impacts of grief and loss on a child and how a professional can help a military connected kid foster resilience through positive psychology. We have training on exceptional MilKids and how professionals can support those transitions for kiddos who have a disability or who receive special education services. Also, we do quite a bit around social emotional learning.
A year ago this month, we did a social and emotional learning for students, military connected students, with teachers in our area, in our district, as well as community leaders.
So awesome. Yeah, we really enjoyed doing that training alongside you guys. It was fantastic. And then we also support on just training professionals how to reduce the impact of transition. And then also military student foundations. We find that many schools or professionals really don't know where to start. Like, I don't know what I don't know about military connected kids. So we do have a 101 foundations course that you could promote among your school or any professionals that you're wanting to encourage to get trained. So there's a ton of information we've just given you about the challenges, the resources, and also just highlighting Purple Star school status and how it benefits military connected kids. So I see you guys have been able to put a lot in the chat box. That's fantastic. Thank you for dialoguing with us, but I'm going to pass it back to Kelsey so she can keep us moving along here.
I mean, thank you so much for that. And I think that that's really important information for us to hear about and learn about, and to keep this conversation going. I've been talking about, I feel like this is the beginning of our conversation. And so we will, this is the first year of our conversation series, and we'll be able to move forward and talk about how we will be able to implement some of these opportunities that we're talking about, trainings, looking at how you get Purple Star schools into our communities, things such as that. So I wanted to shift a little and bring in Suzanne Diener, sorry, I got that right, as she is the transition counselor for District 187, which is one of the school districts that Kids Rank runs programming in. And I really wanted to bring Suzanne as part of this conversation because she found a need within her student body and actually took action. And that's really important because I think a lot of times people don't know or think that they are able to make a difference or to, impact in starting something. So I'd like to introduce Suzanne because, the work that she's doing in her school and share a little bit about what she's working on.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Kids Rank and Kelsey, for having me. I'm very excited to share my experience. Excuse the bell, I am at school. I guess I'll just do a quick job overview. I came into this transition counselor position almost 10 years ago. It was originally a DODEA grant funded position. And about 5 years ago, the district actually made it a permanent position through the district, which was really exciting. Since, as you know, DODEA doesn't always have the funds to support us every year. So that was great that we were able to keep this position on. So fast forward to this past spring, we had a community partner, the Staines Family Foundation, and they offered all of the employees this Warhawk Fellowship. So it was kind of an application you could apply to do for an independent project. So I've always thought about this throughout my time here. And I'm the transition counselor, so I am often the first face that families see when they come in to do tours of the school. And I answer any questions they have. I do check-ins with the students within the first week, but I always thought there was a peer-to-peer. There was something missing because I can't be with the students in the lunchroom. I can't be with the students throughout the day in the classroom. And, I felt that they really were missing that buddy or that friendship, that mentor, that social connection. And as a counselor, I feel like student voice is so important too in the school. And I found that I had an opportunity to create this independent project. It's called the Falcon Friends program. And so it's a transition program. It's 100% peer-led, and it's kind of based on the Anchored for Life program. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. This is a program that is run by the Navy and in conjunction with the Trevor Romaine Company. And they actually do it at our 4th and 5th grade center in the district. So I had a little bit of experience. I could talk to the teacher advisors over there, kind of pick their brains about what worked, what didn't work. I actually talked to the director of Anchored for Life and talked about what they did through the program. And she had mentioned that they never had worked with students so young. So I work at a K-3 building. So 3rd grade is the highest grade at our school. And she had mentioned, I don't know if we have the maturity to do this. And as a counselor, I see all the students in Tier 1. I do a lot of supports for social emotional learning. And I'm like, these kids can do it. I know they can do it. And it gives them an opportunity to lead and have that student voice and really have options and choices in their school. So to start my program out, I did a sort of a needs assessment because I always think, data backs up everything that I can say. I can talk and talk and talk, but that data really shows that there is a need. So I went back and kind of pulled the data for our school. I always knew that we had a high mobility rate. I think I pulled the data from school year 18-19, and we were about 24% at my school, which is compared to 7% in the state. So it's pretty high at our school. And then when I worked with our data person and we actually pulled all the data, I found that military mobility was very high, is about 46% at our school, but civilian mobility at our school was even higher, which was like, wow, I had no idea. Since I mostly do work with military students, that was kind of an eye-opener. And I kind of shifted the program to include everyone, not just military students, because I think the civilian students could benefit too, since there was such a high mobility rate. So I started thinking about what components I wanted to put into the program. And there's a couple components I'll go through quickly. So one of the big things was having students give that welcome tour. So having the student come out and meet the new student, have the student come out and give them a welcome kit. I had talked with Kelsey early on about like what could go in to that welcome kit. And she gave some great ideas like a school swag, which I loved, like maybe shirts or gear, like water bottles that say our school name. And so that was one of the things I really wanted to do, so that the first impression that the student has is like up here. It's positive and it makes them excited and happy to know that they have another student that they can maybe connect with or ask questions to, especially since I'm not there with them throughout the day. That's someone that they can connect to. And maybe if they have questions, they might feel more comfortable talking to another student versus a teacher or the counselor seeking out help from someone else. So since we are virtual right now, we could not implement that part. We just started this program this past month, actually, and it's all virtual this year because of the pandemic, with hopes that next year we will resume some of our in-person learning. But so virtually, how does this look? So right now we have 7 second and third graders. They were all recommended by teachers. So we really wanted those students that are outgoing, that are friendly, that really are the role models for the school. And, you know, we reached out to them and they all were like on board. They were super excited and wanted to do it. So we've been meeting virtually twice a month. And one of the first things we've come up with is kind of doing a virtual tour. So we actually have, I think 2 of them are actually in person in the building. So we're going to do an actual video tour with them. And then the other students that are learning from home are going to do kind of like a voiceover, like a narrative part of the video. So we can incorporate both those and put it on the website. And then another thing we do to kind of welcome them now, since we're virtual, is when I get like news that a new student's coming in, I'll reach out to one of our students and say, hey, can you send this student, you know, a welcome video? And I've gotten some positive feedback. Like the new students really like that. They get like a cute little video saying, welcome, my name is so-and-so, and kind of telling them about the school. Because I mean, as much as I can do that, I send videos. I think they like it much better coming from another peer than a teacher. So that's super exciting. And it's encouraging to see all of our Falcon Friends, our leaders, doing these positive and fun messages. So going on, another thing that we're going to incorporate is a monthly lunch and learn group for our new students. So all the students that come in that month are invited to like a virtual lunch with our team leaders. And this is a way to kind of incorporate social emotional learning as well. As a counselor, that's very important to me. So that was something I wanted to incorporate. Myself and another teacher, the SEL teacher, we are the advisors for the group. So we help guide what the students talk about, but it's really left up to them. So like maybe one month talk about conflict resolution, or maybe some friendship problems that students are having, or maybe in May we'll talk about, you know, moving again, because I know we lose a lot of our military students over the summer, and maybe they're anxious about moving, they're getting ready to move to a new school. So we're going to leave it up to the students to really decide the topic and then just help guide them on how to lead it. And also it gives them some social connections, because especially now with the pandemic and a lot of our new students are staying home, you know, they don't really get to meet all the new students in their class. They don't have time to really talk and make friends with other students. So I felt like that was very important as well. And then we aren't starting this year just due to the pandemic, but my hopes are that we'll have an annual service project so we can really tie in the community too and give the students a choice. So maybe an example might be we could do a bake sale to raise funds for Orphans of the Storm, which is like an animal shelter, or really we'll leave it up to them, what's important to them and what they decide is important, and they can really be the brains of the operation. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the friendship part of our Falcon Friends transition group, but it's something called the DESA Mini, which as a counselor, this is really near and dear to my heart. So it's an 8-question strength-based assessment that is given upon enrollment. So whenever a family comes in and registers, they would just be given this form. It should take less than a minute, so it's really fast, and it gives a reliable estimate of a student's social emotional competence. And this is super important to me because as a counselor, I always want to do everything proactively. So if we know coming in that the student needs, these supports, that would be awesome to do it proactively instead of like 30 days later, 60 days later, when we have to do, an intervention reactively. I think it's always great to start out proactively and give them those supports that they need. And a lot of the times we have, academics covered. They come in, they can test right away and we know where their academics lie, but there's nothing for that social emotional competence, which I feel is very important. I just wanted to read this quote quickly from the DESA Mini because I thought this was very powerful. So the research has found that students who scored in the need for instruction range were 4.5 times more likely to commit a serious behavior infraction by the end of the year than compared to their peers. So that's like, I don't know, to me, that was so shocking. Like we could prevent this from happening. And especially with students who a lot of the times aren't even here a year later, it's very helpful to know like where these students are academically and socially emotionally when they come in to our school. And it just provides us with that information from the get-go. And then basically, like, overall, the goals of the transition program were to just help students transition more smoothly, have less behavioral infractions, so that interventions are given on day one versus later on down the road. Hopefully academics would improve, and then the family satisfaction with their transition into the school, that rate would improve as well. So those were my like goals of the whole program. And that pretty much in a nutshell wraps up what I created and what we've just started in February, and I'm really excited about it. And I'll hand it back to you, Kelsey.
Thanks. So there's a couple questions. The name of the strength-based assessment, can you either put that in the chat or
Yeah,
share what that is? Yeah.
it's called the
'cause
DESA Mini. Yes. And another neat thing about that is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Second Step. So it's a tier 1 support that a lot of schools use to teach social emotional learning. And the DESA Mini actually ties into that. So we do that here at my K-3 school, and I teach that. And so that's awesome that it ties right into the curriculum that we're already using.
Yeah, I mean, I think understanding where people, where our youth are, you know, kind of on this, getting you say, so we can be proactive. My partner in crime, Meryl, who's running this, she always talks about proactive. She's an athlete, you know, has been an athlete, and talks about prehab, you know, and so thinking, you know, what can we do on the front end? I think that back to what we were saying, that, you know, kind of thinking of how we can best prepare on the front end so that, you know, when we do have, you know, we know that our kids are going to have to, you know, be faced with challenges, whether it's separation or transition or, you know, any of those kinds of things. And so to give them the coping mechanisms ahead of time, you know, I think is such a strength. And so a lot of this work that we're talking about, you know, giving parents resources around education so that when they come in to communities, that they're better able to navigate through these systems, which can be really sometimes almost confusing, you know, as Sue was saying, going from one school district to another, and to have to do this every, you know, 2 to 3 years, sometimes every year. It just makes sense. So I'm going to open it up, you know, kind of more for general conversation, but, you know, we are, the idea of, you know, where we are with COVID now. And, you know, we've always dealt with isolation. I mean, that was my first thought when the pandemic first happened and we were quarantined, was a lot of our families have, you know, won't necessarily deal with housing instability and food insecurities, as, you know, you see in basic necessities. But I knew that the mental health piece was going to be a challenge that would really hit us, and that we in our communities, you know, and as I'm sure across the country, when military families move to a new area and are then having to not be able to go into schools and do those activities that you might think of, are feeling isolated. And even families that have to PCS, I mean, I can imagine, Casey, you know, you might not have been able to see all the friends and family in the community that you've built these relationships with, because and then it's time for you to go, and you haven't really been able to properly say goodbye. So I'm going to open it up to any questions that might be out there, and, you know, any comments that the group may have. Or I can start a leading question. I guess I do want to, you know, we're thinking about with Kids Rank, how can we be a piece in this puzzle? Because as I mentioned in the beginning, that we get building communities of care. Kids Rank is very focused on what we do in the way that we support our kids. And so we need reliable resources to be able to, you know, share with our families, and MCEC is one of those reliable resources. So I have referred many times, you know, said, you know, hey, you're moving into a new community. Have you checked out MCEC's website? You know, where are you going, and, you know, what resources might be available for when you get there. I think this kind of networking, how important, Casey, or anybody from the MCEC team, have you seen, because since you're a national organization, you know, have you seen this network of, you know, kids moving in and out communities? How important is that in them settling and transitioning?
Kara, you want to take that one?
So the question was, how important is it to connect to other students, their school, the community, all of those
Yeah,
resources?
love
And
it. Yeah,
we find that that really helps make that smooth transition. So it doesn't, in having that 360 approach, that it really isn't something that only one pointed location. And that's why roles like the one that Suzanne plays and that Sue has played is important, because it's all the connections. We know those resources and supports are out there. People are out there that want to support military kids. There's these great resources, but sometimes there's a disconnect between the needs and the resources. So how do we connect those together? So sometimes bringing in school professionals, bringing in parents, bringing in students themselves, and also those community supports that can come around them and help them with those needs that are identified either in a needs assessment or even with teachers. I don't know how many teachers we have on here. When you speak with your students and you identify needs, that you can connect them.
yeah. I think that this is, I feel like this is becoming increasingly apparent as we're, we talked with Focus in our first session around family resilience training that they do, and Camp Corral that does camps over the summer, that is working with caregivers, and we had a Dole fellow. And so I think that we're seeing now this trend of really trying to connect these resources. There's so few organizations that serve military children specifically, and I think now it's really great to be partnering with them all to bring that consistency so that we can kind of spread and really work smarter, not harder. Like there's no need for us to create resources on education because it's already done. So why would I do that? So that for that transition piece, I think it's really important.
Yeah, Kelsey, and just to echo what you just said about that whole, just the collaboration piece, the teaming and the networking, that helps military connected kids. And that's the point. And that's what we're all in this endeavor for. And so it's that collaboration piece is just so important. But Tara mentioned something, and Kelsey, you've hinted to this too, and I just think it's worth noting, the 360 approach. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term wraparound services. It's a term that's used highly in social work. But really, when we think about military connected kids and all the transitions that they go through, whether it's transitions on their same installation, with the service member going in and out of the house, or mom working, not working, or school closing, not closing, or a full-on move, transition is transition, change is change. But when we think about kiddos going through those types of changes, and we realize the collaboration piece that's needed for them to have full wraparound services, right? So that's the education piece, that's the social emotional, the mental health well-being, how's the family life, what's going on at home, what are the finances, the food, all of those pieces to come around a military kiddo and be strong in a community and in a network and in a collaboration so that that kid can be successful, and go forward. And so that's the goal. So I just want to echo the importance of the collaboration, the networking, the teaming, so that we can collectively, as a military community here, we can collectively support kiddos to meet their needs.
Right. I mean, because there are military connected kids in every single zip code across the country. So if you didn't realize that you were living in a community with military connected kids, surprise, you are. And so, it's not just us as I was a spouse for 17 years. And so it's not just the military community itself that needs to do this wraparound. It's our civilian friends that 80% of military kids go to civilian schools. And so they'll transition 6 to 9 times, during their K through 12, careers as students. And so, we're out there, we're amongst you. And so, it's important to, not just think of it as, oh, we only need to support through school, but maybe you are, a youth leader at your church, or you are you run a small business in the community, and you're hiring on a military, child as a, for their first job. And, so there's so many areas, that you think of, think of your own children when you move into the communities and who they really come across. They're pediatricians, they're, mental health providers. I mean, they're just, so many areas. And so if we can all work together and figure out, what we can learn, and just even the baseline of understanding military culture, which has its own language, it has, its own mental health, obviously is an area that is still a stigma within the population. And so thinking about really just how we use language in working with our military families, I think becomes important. So
And also to note, it's not only active duty children. We know there's 1.2 active duty military children, but we also have National Guard and Reserve all over. And so those are the ones that sometimes is the invisible population, the ones that are a little bit harder to identify, or are veteran connected and retirees. And so when we're saying in every zip code, that's where people get confused. Like, what do you mean in every zip code? But when you look at the fact of the military child not only being our active duty, that sometimes these other populations are the ones who really could benefit the most from these people in their lives coming around them and supporting them within their needs, because they aren't directly located on an installation, because they're a little further out, but their needs are still great despite whatever status their parent is at that time.
yeah, and I love something that Suzanne brought up, this idea of strength based. We come from, as an organization, Kids Rank, we think of the strengths that military kids possess, and their ability to really be resilient. But that resilience a lot of times is built through their support system. So it's not that military kids will always be inherently resilient, because I think that's sometimes a misconception. I think it's the community that is there to support them when they're having challenges or difficulties and things of that nature that really helps to instill that and fortify that.
Mhm.
I would like to mention something really quick as well. I am a veteran mother, and I have three. And just to backtrack a little bit, I did have to reach and like dig to even find this. And as a veteran, it is hard to know what's out there for me and my children, because we're not on installations anymore. Like I have to actually Google and call around and ask friends of friends of friends to find out what's out there for us still, because it's not getting out there to veterans and it's very, very hard. It's very hard to run across it. I'm in the good old state of Mississippi. So it's almost far and few, because I think really we only have like National Guard and reservists here. So I do not hear a lot about what's available for my children at all.
Yeah, that's what I love about MCEC, us as well. We talk about military connected kids as active duty, veteran, retiree, guard, because it's not as if that military culture is not still within your household. I do know, like, that's what was kind of really sad to me, is that when active duty would go to status as veteran, that the services for kids, I mean, those are discontinued, and your access to them. And so that's that's an amazing point. And I think that one people don't really consider.
And I want to I don't want to plug here, but I do want to let you know that even Sue Lopez right now, she used to be embedded right within schools as a military student transition consultant, but now she's a military student consultant, and she can help anyone, no matter what the status, no matter where you are in the world. So I see a direct question in the chat box right now that I was like, that's the kind of issue that we have support and help with through our organization at no charge to the participant ever. So when we come and you come and say, I'm having an issue with a student, or I'm a parent and my students have an issue, or sometimes the student themselves comes with an issue, then Sue and her counterpart right now is Mark Patton. They can come alongside and help with issues and also connect people to resources. So that's a big part, and probably why Casey invited us here today, is because she knows that's part of our mission, and our goal is to help people through connecting them to the resources and supports that can help them. So oftentimes we do have those answers at our fingertips, but other times we don't. But we try to connect you with the people that might be able to help. And so you may want to expand on that if I missed something, or you want to personalize that a little bit more. But I felt like it was really relevant in this part of the conversation, especially as we talk about the limited supports for those who aren't active duty, that we will support no matter what the status.
So Suzanne, I'm inspired by what you do, and it's nice for parents who know that there's a transition coming, that you and I could do a warm handoff. Hey, I know a kid coming your way. Can you help this family integrate into the community? And those are things that we want to help with. I've worked with students coming from Guam and Bahrain and from around the world back to the States, or going OCONUS, as well as just going state to state or even district to district. But we do have a collaboration of team players that are there to serve military students, whether it's MCEC or Partners in Promise or Military Kids Connect. Now there's a few organizations, but when everyone works together and we collaborate together, and hopefully with the foundation pillars of Purple Star Schools, more schools will hire a military student consultants as yourself, Suzanne, and hopefully even in different professional fields in the teaching profession or in the school counseling profession, which I'm a school counselor as well, that we look at the ASCA standards and how do we create this model in our school to collect the data, to do the research, to find where the gaps are, to find where the gaps in services are, so that we can develop a program inside of our own schools as school counselors and use Purple Star as a foundation and use the resources that are out there for us to serve veterans' children, to serve active duty regards, National Guards and Reserves, all of them. So there are so many people out there, but it's connecting with the resources, and it takes that liaison on the school campus to do that. It takes somebody who is fully engaged in supporting military students and families, but all students benefit from that. All highly mobile students will benefit. All at-risk students will benefit from the work that you're doing. So thank you for everything and the opportunity to share this with you again.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and I just want to, as we're coming to the end of this conversation session, I think that, this is really why we started this foundation conversation, is to, in this first year, really to start identifying those resources that are out there and available, and being able to share those out, and then learn where there are some gaps. Learn where maybe resources aren't connecting with people, and we could, be helpful in making that happen. And so I want to just say, just kind of as a plug for next month, that we're going to be talking about military moms, so service members that are women, and how that impacts their children, and what that means, because I think that looks different, and it's not always thought about. Having to maybe go on deployment, or you have different situations. You could be a single mom and have children. You could be, there's so many situations that are maybe different for women as service members with children than their male counterparts. So next month we'll have a panel discussion with some active duty and veteran mothers talking about their experience in that. So I want to give opportunity for our guests today if they want to say anything before we wrap up. Any final thoughts?
Just that this is a fabulous conversation, and I'm excited to keep it going.
I agree. I would like to go back and also, like, as a college student, it was also someone there, some type of representative or liaison, like one of the guests was previously stating. And I think that is absolutely imperative for our K through 12. I highly believe that if my children knew that there was somebody there who, used to help mommy when she was a soldier or whatever, they would be more comfortable talking to a guidance counselor that was educated from that specific department versus one just from an education department. Not to knock it, but just to have that special something for our children, I think would open the gates for better communication, from what I've lived through with being a mommy, a veteran, just all together. So I think this is absolutely headed in the right direction.
Absolutely. I agree. So, really, this is the beginning of a conversation, not the end. So we would love to hear from you and hear your feedback and any thoughts that you have, and feel free to reach out to me. And I know that that Casey and Tara and Sue have shared their information. We'll make sure that goes out in the resources that we send after. And I want to thank the Pritzker Military Foundation, who actually is the supporter of this event for today, this conversation session, and really everyone who is participating with us and took the time to learn a little more, because this is really what makes the difference. Just, you know, having people sharing information and then kind of figuring out how can we collectively work together. So thank you all for your time today, and we thank you for our musical interlude. And then so we will see you next month.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Joshua.
This is
Bye.
wonderful.
Thank you for
Thank you.
everything.
See you
Thank you.
later.
Bye.